You probably don't know what happened in January 2024. It wasn't a headline, but it was a number you weren't supposed to see. Deep inside the engine room of Europe, new industrial orders in Germany didn't just dip, they crashed. An 11.3% free fall in a single month. This wasn't a statistical blip. It was a sign that something is fundamentally broken. For decades, the world ran on a simple assumption. The German industrial machine keeps humming. It builds the cars, the chemicals, the high-tech machinery that powers the global economy. But what if that machine isn't just stalling? What if it's seizing up right before our eyes? The story you've been told is that this is a temporary slump, a rough patch caused by an energy crisis that will fade. But that story's wrong. What we are witnessing is not a cyclical downturn. It's a structural collapse. And it is far, far worse than you think. The death of the German industrial model is happening in plain sight, and today we're going to expose the three silent killers that are bringing this giant to its knees. So how does the country that taught the world how to build a car end up here? To understand the scale of this, you have to look past the monthly headlines and see the pattern. That 11.3% crash in January 2024 was driven by huge drops in demand across core sectors. When you look closer, this isn't an isolated event. It's the fever spike in a patient that has been sick for a long time. Industrial production has been weak for years. In fact, Germany's GDP has barely grown at all over the last 5 years, while other advanced economies have moved ahead. This isn't a recession, it's an erosion. The country's own Council of Economic Experts warns that the weakness is increasingly structural, not cyclical. They point to a prolonged period of weak growth and warn that the country must adapt to a new global reality. The BDI, Germany's powerful industry association, has been sounding the alarm, seeing no real signs of economic recovery in the industrial sector. This is the language of a system in crisis. It's the language of a business model that has hit a wall. To find the first crack in that wall, you have to go back to the moment the energy equation for the entire continent was rewritten. For half a century, German industry ran on cheap Russian gas. That was the deal, and it worked beautifully. Gas came through the pipes, electricity stayed affordable, and the factories could compete with anyone in the world on cost. For entire sectors, chemicals, metals, glass, it was the secret sauce. When that cheap gas was cut off, it fundamentally broke the business model for a huge part of German industry. Production in these energy-intensive industries plummeted by around 15% from pre-war levels and has stayed there. Suddenly, producing in Germany became radically more expensive than in the United States or China. Take the chemical giant BASF. Facing unbearable energy prices, the company announced it was being forced to downsize operations in its historic home of Ludwigshafen. Simultaneously, it is pouring 10 billion euros into a massive new production site in China. This isn't just one company. Capital is fleeing a high-cost environment. Volkswagen and Mercedes have also made significant new investments in the U.S., drawn by American subsidies and lower energy costs. Now, defenders of the status quo will point out that energy prices have fallen from the insane peaks of 2022, and they're right, but they miss the crucial point. Prices haven't returned to the old normal. They have settled at a new, structurally higher level. German industry now faces persistently higher energy costs than its global competitors. The IMF has warned that this new reality will likely lower Germany's potential output for an extended period. The energy shock was the first blow. It cracked the foundation. But what came next is what threatens to bring the entire structure down. For years, the relationship with China was a German industrialist's dream. Germany sold high-end machinery and premium cars to a rapidly growing Chinese middle class. It was a perfect synergy. That era is over. Today, Germany is being squeezed by a new China. It's losing the Chinese market itself. For what felt like forever, Volkswagen was the undisputed king of the Chinese car market. That reign ended. In 2023, VW was overtaken by the Chinese EV giant BYD. The market share of all German brands in China has been falling, from 24% in 2020 to just 15% by 2024. The reason is simple. In the race to electrification, German giants were too slow. As Chinese buyers shifted to EVs, German brands lost out in this critical segment. But the second part of the squeeze is even more terrifying for Germany. China is no longer just winning at home. It is now attacking Germany's industrial heartland on the global stage. This isn't about cheap textiles anymore. In 2020, China overtook Germany as the world's largest exporter of machinery. Then by 2025, it reportedly did the same in machine tools, the machines that build other machines. The German Machine Tool Builders Association, VDW, called the news not good, noting a massive surge in Chinese exports driven by Beijing's state strategy. While German firms struggle with high energy costs, Chinese competitors, often backed by state subsidies, are flooding global markets. The country that once rode China's rise to prosperity is now being squeezed by it. As devastating as these external shocks have been, they only accelerated a decay that had already set in. The final part of this story is about the rot from within, a toxic mix of complacency, bureaucracy, and a demographic time bomb. For years, while its export engine was running hot, Germany became complacent. It failed to invest enough in its own future. Businesses complain endlessly about the bureaucratic hurdles that stifle innovation. It took Tesla years of legal battles to open its Berlin Gigafactory. A comparable plant in China can be built in under 18 months. This made the industrial base brittle and unprepared for the shocks to come. Then there is the human element. The backbone of German industry is the Mittelstand, the small and medium-sized family-owned companies. But this backbone is aging. According to Germany's State Development Bank KfW, hundreds of thousands of these business owners are nearing retirement. One report estimates that by the end of 2027, around 626,000 businesses will be seeking a successor. Yet in the current climate, fewer young people are willing to take on the risk. When a family firm that has been the lifeblood of a village for generations can't find a successor, more than just a company dies. And finally, there is the direct cost in jobs. This isn't theoretical, it's happening now. German car makers and their suppliers have announced tens of thousands of job cuts since 2023. These aren't just numbers, they are livelihoods, families, and communities being hollowed out. This goes far beyond the headlines. If you find this kind of analysis valuable for understanding the real shifts in our global economy, take a moment to subscribe. I created this channel to share what I see from the inside, to connect the dots that others miss. So has German industry literally died? No. But the old German industrial model, the one that powered Europe for 50 years, is dead. It was built on assumptions that are now gone forever. Cheap energy, unchallenged technological leadership, and a symbiotic relationship with China. What's left is an industrial base caught in a perfect storm. It is saddled with a structural energy cost disadvantage. It is under assault from a strategic competitor in China that is now competing on quality, not just price, and it is weakened from within by years of underinvestment and a demographic crisis that threatens its very core. The German Council of Economic Experts has been blunt, stating the country's weakness is structural and that it is lagging well behind other advanced economies. This isn't a temporary slump. This is a fundamental deindustrialization. It's a slow, grinding process that is far more dangerous than a sharp recession, because many don't see it for what it is until it's too late. The engine of Europe is not just sputtering, its core components are being outcompeted into obsolescence. The question is no longer whether the German industrial model will recover. The question is what, if anything, will be left to take its place.